So they waited for the right person to be the poster case. And of course, as you know, Rosa Parks provided that image in December of 1955. But don't be mistaken, she was not the first to refuse to give up her seat. That's one of the things to remember about the Civil Rights Movement. Even though we celebrate Dr. King, he wasn't by himself. You know, one of the folks in here today, and just speaking of that for a moment, Dr. Robert Haley is one of the leaders of the movement in St. Augustine, Florida, being left for dead, people shooting into his house, but leading a movement nevertheless. There were many people like Dr. Haley that did their part. But Dr. King was the person out front in so many instances because he was well prepared and he was ready to stand up. He was ready to lead. Now, you already heard about Ms. Morton. She was a wonder. I told folks I had a chance to say a couple words yesterday, and I said, you know, she was really over the top in many ways. She was ahead of her time. You know, that youth group, Gene talked about the dashikis that we had, an Afrocentric approach in the mid-1970s. You know, a lot of folks weren't ready for that. A lot of folks in this church weren't ready for all that. Youth, a choir stand full of teenagers, swaying back and forth, coming in with a beat, a strong beat. Folks weren't ready for that. But she was there, running interference, had the ear of the pastor. This is what we need to do in order to keep them coming back. This is what we need to do in order to keep them connected. They have to have fun. We have to reach them. If we keep them coming back, then we have an opportunity to make a difference. Those dashikis, see, I remember the dashikis. I asked one of my colleagues the other day, now were those dashikis for the girl? Now were those intended as blouses? Or were those dresses? And I was reminded, yes, friend, that they were dresses. But some of the sisters, some of the Adelphi, they were definitely pushing the envelope. Mrs. Morton wasn't feeling all that. We eventually went to Rose. But she knew that she had to keep us coming back. She had to make it fun. So she took some risks. What's the common thread between her and Dr. King? Both of them fought to do the Lord's will. Both of them fought to be used by Him. Both of them were risk takers. Risk takers. You know, I'm not going to be before you very much longer because I realize y'all haven't had breakfast yet. I already had a couple of my friends ask me, you know, well, how old are y'all speak? I understand the spirit in which that is asked. You see, as I was coming along, I was ever reminded that when I left the Gunn household, I represented Willie and Elizabeth. When I went out on behalf of Mount Olive, I was made mindful of the fact that I represented Reverend Weaver and Ms. Morton and the rest of the Mount Olive family. And so as I was preparing, as I was getting my first speeches, handwritten, Chuck. This is more love handwriting. But as I got my first handwritten speeches and I was practicing at home, trying to memorize it and all of this, I was getting instructions from my parents, and they were telling me, just to make sure that I stood up straight so that people could see me. I don't have that problem anymore. They told me to be sure to speak up so people could hear me. I don't have that problem anymore. And then as time went on and I got other opportunities away from here, it was like an addendum was added. When you have public opportunities, you want to hurry up and shut up so that people will love you. I love to be loved, Nala. I love to be loved. So I won't be before you long, but we must consider this theme. Prayer in the street starts with, peace in the street starts with prayer in the home. Again, it seems to be the end of the story. Here's the problem. We have an absence of peace in the street. How do we resolve it? We have to start with prayer in the home. Crunch told me that I had some leeway because I've been meditating this thing. I said, okay, how do I pull all these threads together? How do I do that? And what does this mean? Start with the left side. Peace in the street. Peace in the street, absence of violence. We think about that. Everybody wants less hitting, slashing, stabbing, bullying, shooting. We all want less of that. We all recognize that those are severe problems, not only in the African American community, but in America overall. You know that America, the richest country on earth still, we imprison more people than any other country. We're among the most violent of societies. My friend Dr. Hankerson gave me an article the other day dealing with cultural violence. You see, we suffer from a culture of violence. Professional football, how many folks watched any of the games yesterday? A lot of folks watched the games. Some people liked what they saw and some people didn't. But the reality is, professional football long ago replaced baseball as America's pastime. Ultimate fighting is growing in popularity. The video games. I was talking to my daughter night before last, and she was telling me that sometimes just in dealing with frustration, there's a game, I forget the name of the game, but she said that she just likes to get that game and start punching and swinging with that game. The video games are expressions of violence. Violence in every direction. Violence. But that's not the only type of violence that there is. There's also the violence of the human psyche. The violence that convinces someone that they are useless, worthless, that they have no value to society. That is violence. Mrs. Morton fought against that type of violence. Look at the other side. It starts with prayer in the home. Okay? That's a wonderful thing. That is a great sentiment. I love that. But ladies and gentlemen, the home has changed. What happens when grandmothers are 31 and 32 years old? People talk about having a praying grandmother. Well, if grandma is 31 to 32, and grandma didn't have any grounding from her mom or her grandmama, then what? Home has changed. changed. Home has changed. I'm a big proponent of prayer. I know that prayer changes things. I know that prayer works. Prayer is rooted in faith. And as a Christian, I am taught and I believe that without faith, it is impossible to please God. Those that come to Him must believe that He is, and that He is a rewarder of those who diligently seek Him. I know that. I believe that. I try to live that. I also believe with all my heart, as it says in the book of James, that the effective, fervent prayer of a righteous man or woman avails much. Avails much. The effective, fervent prayer avails much. What's an effective prayer? The first prayer that I was taught was, "Now I lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord my soul to keep if I should die before I wake. I pray the Lord my soul to take." God bless Mama. God bless Daddy. I was taught that in the home. But I would argue, I argue today. I'm not arguing, I'm just telling you. To be truly effective, we're going to have to pray some prayers that put you on the line. That put me on the line. What am I talking about?